All right, rock and roll. Here we are, the Scorched Earth Political Podcast for March 2nd. Sunday, March 2nd, beautiful day. We're almost getting to spring. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said their kid has got spring break coming up. I'm like, wow, winter, we barely even knew you. Just what it is. So I'm going to tell you a funny little story, maybe. Maybe it's not as funny as I think it is. But my mom, I see them every day. They're 85. They're rascals. You've heard maybe you've been one of the few people who saw the popcorn assassin. My mom takes no prisoners, tells no lies, just kind of like this podcast. And, she's pro-Trump. I'm not exactly there. We had this little disagreement. She says, why don't we talk about politics so you can get your anger out? I don't want my anger out. I want to focus my anger on the powers that be, right? So, she's telling me that all these cuts are good. Yeah. 7,000 people at Social Security. Good, right? Until their check starts getting affected, right? Everybody wants to get rid of the government that doesn't involve them, right? So one of her things she always tells me, I live in the mountains, is NOAA, okay, National Oceanographic Administration. And basically they chart the weather. And because they have acknowledged that climate change is a real thing, Trump doesn't like that. So they cut 90% of the funding for NOAA. And I brought that up to my mom today. I said, did you hear about NOAA? She goes, no. Now, she always tells me that should be my weather resource, that I need to get NOAA radio. I need to have it on my phone. I need to have it on my radio. She actually gave me a radio with a dialer into NOAA, right? So I could get the latest updating of weather in the mountains here in Southern California, right? So I said, well, what about NOAA? And she goes, what happened to NOAA? I go, well, they cut 90% of the funding. And she goes, well, what does that mean? I go, well, I don't think they're going to be as accurate giving us weather and stuff. She goes, well, no, I need NOAA. And I said, okay. And she goes, well, what is that? She says, are they going to cut the people who do Southern California? And I go, I have a funny feeling they're going to be the first ones cut, because Southern California, I can just give you the prognosis for the next 90 days. 75 and sunny, 76 and sunny, with a slight wind. We're on the chopping block, and she says, no, they're not going to cut it. All right, so now we're supposed to get a snowstorm up here in the mountains in Southern California in the next couple days. I'm not going to be using my NOAA radio. Thank you, Mom. Appreciate the radio, but now it's just going to be a bookend for a bookshelf. All right? Let's get into the news. I'm your host, John. First off, please hit that subscribe and like button. It means a lot to us. Leave a comment. Live on the wild side. Tell me what you think. If we want to put a middle finger up towards me, I'm cool with that. Let's go, Scooby Cats. All right, and we're off and running. We're taking no prisoners, telling no lies. We're dealing with the aftermath of the Friday press conference in the White House. And, we live in a society where 45% of the country, no matter what Trump does, is good, right? I am always amazed that being on the liberal side, there was plenty of people unhappy with Biden. I don't hear that with Trump, right? I don't see any of that. You don't agree with me? Let's just head down there to Michigan, in some of those counties with the Palestinians, about how they thought about voting for Trump over Biden because of what was going down in Gaza, right? Plenty of other voices. And I do love that our party does allow other people with other voices to speak their mind and speak their truth, that we're not all a bunch of lemmings like the Republican Party. But a lot of people think, Trump stood up for America. Oh, yeah, he'd be bad. He'd be a good dude. Yeah, right. Well, next day, yesterday, Saturday, Zelensky was on the move, heading over to Europe. They're going to have a big summit today, Sunday. Zelensky says it is crucial for Ukraine to have President Trump's backing and expressed his gratitude to the United States. At the end of the day, Trump, Vance, all his sycophants, they have no idea what a war is. You know, Trump's the guy who was able to get out of his service because of those terrible bone spurs. Vance never served a cent, you know. A second, Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate for the Democrats, did serve. But, you know, they make him out to be like the peace-loving liberal. The guy who actually served in the military for our country, who actually had guns, who believed in gun rights, not assault weapon rights, that was the guy who was considered the liberal. All right, let's figure that one out. Let's go. So now Zelensky has a day to think about it, and he realizes if I don't get U.S. backing, we're going to get crushed. They're going to take everything. And is it better to lose 20% of your country and mineral rights in the eastern Ukraine and keep, you know, the other 25 million people safe? Those are tough decisions that a leader of a country has to make. Trump's never had to make those decisions. Well, no, I take it back. He did in 2020 when there was COVID, and he decided not to protect most of the Americans. He sat there and he said, it was the flu. It's all going to go away. Inject bleach. He didn't give a rat's ass about any of us. All he wanted to do was get reelected. That's all he wanted. It's all about him, the narcissist. So now Zelensky has got the sober moment. He stood up for his country. I'm proud of what he did. I'm ashamed of America. I'm ashamed of what Trump did. The more you see the clips, you just sit there and shake your head and think, this is America in 2025? So he says Kiev is ready to sign the rare minerals agreement. He's got to do something. He's got to walk it back somehow. I don't know. I personally think they're going to slice and dice the country. Another democracy hits the dust. We're going to see if Europe's going to come to their aid. I think they will. They're more pro-democracy than our current administration is. Western leaders on Saturday rallied around Zelensky. UK Prime Minister Starmer said, we retain unwavering support for the Ukraine and am playing a vital part to find a path forward to a lasting peace based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine. That's a nice start. There's a real leader. There's someone who cares about other people and not just themselves. Starmer then really went out and urged Trump against accepting any peace deal in Ukraine that would, quote unquote, reward Russia and its allies for their aggression. UK is going to host a summit today of European leaders to discuss their ongoing support for Kiev. They're going to have to up the ante. Now, as we've talked about, they've given over $250 billion to Kiev. The United States has given 175. The weapons has been about the same, about 70 billion each, which I thought it would be a lot higher, but also from the Europeans, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, a key Trump ally in Europe, mostly because she's a right-wing fascist. Even she said she called for a summit with U.S. and European nations to discuss the war, saying the divisions in the Ukraine-Russian war weaken all of the West. And I'll tell you, the guy who's really worried is the premier of Poland, because after they slice and dice Ukraine, Poland's next. They're right there on the doorstep. And if they're not going to sit there and back, if the United States isn't going to back Ukraine, why would they back Poland? I mean, what makes the sense? It doesn't. European leaders have been blindsided in the recent weeks by the utter collapse of American support for Ukraine. And I get that, but, you know, Trump's been saying this for a year. And I know they didn't have any say in that. you kind of got to sit on the sidelines and play the diplomacy thing in terms of, I don't want to get on his bad side in case he wins. And he had a 50-50 shot, and he did. He won. But, diplomacy is a long game. With Trump, it's just whatever happens in front of my face, and then we'll deal with the wreckage tomorrow. And that's what they're dealing with. At Helsinki, if you remember correctly, everybody's saying this is the biggest faux pas in American diplomacy. It might be. It was pretty disgusting. If you remember in the Helsinki Accords conference, summit, let's call it summit, in 2017, that's when Trump came up on the stage and said he trusted Vladimir Putin more than the American intelligence apparatus. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay. There we go. French Prime Minister or President Macron, love this guy. He said there's an aggressor, which is Russia, and an attacked people, which is the Ukraine people. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians do. They're dying every day. Trump's sitting on Air Force One. He's sitting on Mar-a-Lago. He has no stake in the game. He has no skin in the game. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau, love this guy. Shame to see him go. He says Canada continues to stand with the Ukrainians. Wall Street Journal also came out yesterday. It is bewildering to see Mr. Trump's allies defending the debacle in the White House on Friday as some show of American strength. It was a clown show. I mean, he basically said we are not going to support democracy around the world. I am really fascinated to see once this all gets, whatever happens here, and I got a feeling it's not going to be good for Ukraine and Zelensky. What are we doing with Israel? Why are we back in Israel? What's the game plan there? Where's the consistency? Is Israel going to have to pay us back? Yeah, I think you all know the answer there. Why are we backing Israel? Because they are a democracy in the Middle East. Okay? Well, the truth is we're backing them a lot because they have huge donors to the political system in this country. And you don't want to piss off the political donors, right? Bottom line. Hey, that's why we got to be us, right? We got to call it like it is. I'm tired of seeing all these podcasts. Well, they were attacked. Yeah, they were attacked. But what they've done is heinous. And the reason no reason, even Biden doesn't call them out in the political system. Yeah, I feel bad for the Palestinians. I absolutely do. And the reason why we are siding with Israel over the Palestinians, for the most part, Biden tried to walk it back a little, but for the most part, is because the political donations that go down in our country. The Palestinians don't give as much as a political entity to the campaigns of our current elected officials like the Jewish lobby does in America. Okay? It's what it is. I'm not downgrading it. I'm not pointing fingers, but the facts are the facts. Right? I mean, you look at Israel starving out kids and women for months with no water and no food, wouldn't let a humanitarian aid get in there because, God forbid, if a biscuit gets over to Hamas, we're just going to let these 1,000 people die, wither. It's so reprehensible. It's so sick, But hey, as long as Trump can get all those people out and build some Trump condos, sights and wonders. The Wall Street Journal also noted that the U.S. aims of limiting Russian expansionism without the use of U.S. forces was now very hard to achieve. Yeah, we're not going to back them. What does Russia gobble next? They take Poland. Or how about, I know where the Wall Street Journal's going with it. And honestly, it's the most conservative major paper in America, right? So you can't tell me it's some, liberal Jexapon, right? I'm not even sure what Jexapon is. I think I was trying to say just opponents. Boy, my words. Please, let's edit those out. I wish we could. Hey, it's raw, okay? What about China taking over Taiwan, which is a democracy? It's coming. And that's what everybody fears. How are you going to stop it? You let Russia take over them. How are you going to tell China not to take over Taiwan? They have an incentive. They want the computer chip market cornered. They'll have it. We also have Republican strategists, and I hate this guy. This guy is scum on scum. But, he's come out of the Reagan era. Karl Rove says the only winner out of all this is Vladimir Putin. I think for the only time in my life, I will agree with that gentleman. Okay? Where's Dick Cheney? What's he got to say? Also, finally, Alaskan Senator Lisa Murkowski, who I have a lot of respect for. I do not agree with her politics, but I do think it's a lady of substance. One of the few senators who actually has a backbone, especially now that Mitt Romney is sat down. Like I said, I don't have to agree with their politics, but I want to believe that they do stand for something. And they're not all cuckolds for Trump, right? She said, I'm sick to my stomach as the administration appears to be walking away from one of our allies and embracing Putin, a threat to democracies and U.S. values all around the world. Yeah, exactly. She hit the nail on the head. All right. We're going to go back to this story, I'm sure, tomorrow night. We're going to see what happens with the Sunday news shows. They're going to generate a lot of publicity. Friday night, Saturday are usually dead news days. Okay, let's get to our other segment, Odd Things in the News. Andrew Cuomo, who's just like Harvey Weinstein light, is running for the New York mayor. On Saturday, he made a 17-minute video announcing his candidacy for the office. We all know that New York City is in trouble. Yeah, that's what Trump said for a year about the U.S. Look how that's going. Lie. He resigned in 2021 amid a sexual harassment scandal after 11 women accused him of sexual misconduct. This guy was a creeper on a creeper, okay? This is what a lot of guys do because of the power dynamic. They hold power and they force women into very uncomfortable situations. And I know we're just starting out, but I'm gonna say this, and it's probably going to be controversial, but I don't really give a rat's ass. I'm going to say 98% of all the women out there have at some point dealt with sexual intimidation, sexual harassment. I hope not this, sexual assault. And I consider sexual assault putting your hands on a woman when she is not asking for it. And I'm not talking like, oh, John, you're so woke you can't even hug a woman. F you. We know what I'm talking about. You can go kiss my ass on that one. We know what's appropriate and we know what's inappropriate. Okay? I have a dear friend, super producer Stacy. I usually hug her at the end of when we meet for coffee or whatever. It is a platonic, friendly hug. I've never thought of her in that way. Women know when somebody crosses the line. And there's a lot of guys who do because they have power over women. Okay? And Andrew Cuomo was that guy. He was the governor of New York. This dude's a piece of crap. Okay? We have him in the Democratic Party. We do. Okay? I wish we didn't, but there's creepers. Okay? I mean, I guess Andrew Cuomo wasn't able to find Heidi Fleiss's number, right? So this sets up a clash between Cuomo and the current mayor, Eric Adams, who has had a lot of corruption problems. He's had charges against him, but he seemed to, give Fat Donnie a massage, and the DOJ is dropping all corruption charges against him, even though I believe 6 DOJ attorneys resigned in protest about dropping the very grievous corruption charges against him. So we'll see how this goes. Dumb and Dumber. They're the biggest names. I don't know. To me, Eric Adams, he's done politically. But maybe going against Cuomo, maybe it works. I don't know. Let's go back into some of the accusations against Andrew Cuomo. They began to emerge in December of 2022. including Charlotte Bennett, a 25-year-old executive assistant and health policy advisor in the state capitol, who said Cuomo asked her questions about her sex life. All right. Let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt. You know, he's past 50. He's obviously twice her age. Creeper on a creeper. Okay. So let's say they're at a bar having a dinner. Maybe he did. Okay. Let's see what really happened here, according to Charlotte. But she says that they were made in his office in the state capitol building. Now, this is the epitome of the power dynamic. You're in a powerful man's office. You're happy to be there because you want to have a career too, right? You want to be able to have the ability on your own merit. Forget the woke, forget the DEI stuff. You want to be able to advance your career on your potential. But this guy is the guy, if you can impress him, you might get a new assignment. You might be able to get the opportunity to do it. Look, guys do it all the time. Girls are doing the same thing. They want to be judged on their merit. Well, this guy starts asking you these sexual questions like, hey, would you ever date somebody over 50? Like, wow, what's a girl say to that? What's a girl say to that? You know? I remember back in the day, this is a long time ago, a good friend, his sister worked at Goldman Sachs. And she was one of the few women who worked there. And back then, they made a policy that they preferred, okay, let's put it this way. They preferred if a lady wore a dress or a skirt. Business attire, but, whatever, okay? Put the dress on, put a jacket over it, wear the skirt with a jacket, whatever, okay? Business attire. And I remember her telling me that to walk into her office, guys would literally lay on the ground and look up so they could look up her skirt as she walked over them. Like, wow, man. Wow. How do these people look at their sister and mom and say, yeah, I value you? Like, really? That's what strip clubs are for. You want to perv off? Go do that. Just treat her with some respect. I don't know. All right. Let's get to another thing, odd things in the news. Living in Los Angeles, we had these devastating fires a couple weeks ago. And President Trump signed the executive order unleashing forest management efforts following the devastating LA wildfires. Now, one of the things that was claimed and wasn't true is that they didn't have access to water. So what he did is he took reservoirs in the Central Valley of California, which is approximately 200 miles north of Los Angeles, and had them release their reservoirs to, quote unquote, get the water to Los Angeles. Well, it never made it here. It only got about 50 miles, and then it just sank into the ground. They say that if this is going to be a dry winter, that we're going to have severe drought because of the lack of that water. 2.1 billion cubic feet were released. I don't know how much that means. I don't know, but that just sure sounds like a cubic foot. That sounds like a hell of a lot of water. Okay? So he allows now forestry to sidestep the Endangered Species Act and other environmental regulations. Now, have you ever seen those pictures where there's a 200-year-old oak and you can't do anything near it? Yeah, well, I guess you don't have to worry about that now. And you got, like super producer Stacy, she feeds the squirrels. Well, if that's an endangered species, usually they're not able to work in that land, or they have to have a protected habitat for that animal, no more. Stacy, you better double up on those organic nuts. I'm telling you right now, girl. Get well. All right. Allows increased harvesting of timber and trees, but doesn't address soil erosion. So what he says now is we can just go ahead and get rid of all the trees and all the bush. Okay. But the other issue is, and I live in the mountains, and this is a real issue. You also see it at the beach, is trees are, with their root system, are one of the biggest assets, let's call it this, in stopping soil erosion, because their roots, as they go through there, they literally hold the soil together. Have you ever seen these situations where there's a cliff by the ocean and it all falls into the ocean? Well, the reason is because they didn't have root structure. They didn't have things in the soil to hold it together, and eventually it just crumbles. Well, these are the deep dives that people in forest management have to deal with. They have to balance everything. And look, it's devastating, all these people who lost their homes. I get it. They got a sharp axe out. I like Karen Bass, okay? But she got rid of the LA fire chief because she's scared for her job. That's the only reason she got rid of her. It was a lady. I don't know enough about her. I'm not going to do a deep dive. I do deep dive every night for a couple hours. But at the end of the day, I can see the writing on the wall. Karen Bass is trying to save her butt. Okay. It is what it is. There's a Republican who now is a Democrat. He's going to run for mayor. He's going to do a recall. We're going to see how that all plays out, right? Gavin Newsom responded to the news. He's going to be our next president if I'm not. I need your vote. Responded by saying that land management efforts by the state of California have amounted to over $2.5 billion in the last 2 years alone. So the guy's trying to do stuff. At the end of the day, I got a lot of Republican friends. We're getting better as a society in addressing all the issues, right? And they're gearheads. They love cars, whatever. And they all talk about, we got to get away from electric. We got to get back to, big, meaty mungeons. It's like something out of Tool Time, right? But in California, and I bring this up to everybody, when I was growing up, we have mountains. We have the San Gabriel Mountains close to us. When I was growing up as a kid, I honestly couldn't see the mountains very often because there was so much smog. And now I can see them every day. When I was a kid in grade school, they had stage 1, stage 2 smog alerts, and we literally couldn't go out to recess. I was asking a parent like a couple weeks ago, and I said, do they have them? He goes, no, I never even heard of them. And he's got 2 kids, one in 8th grade and one in high school. And we're like, wow. So, everybody wants everything, but I'm a big proponent of clean air and clean water so our kids can live, even though we're burning up the earth. All right. Finally, our last story of the day. I kind of got a little interest in astronomy, aviation, aeronautics. It's Brother Bill. He's my aviation expert. He's a Republican, yeah. This is an interesting story. Texas-based Firefly, they're sending up a thing called Blue Ghost. It's supposed to land today on the moon. Yeah, I didn't even know this was a thing. There's a lot of private companies that are in the space race. And this particular object is basically like a big cylinder. It's about 2 meters high, 1 meter wide, and it's going to land on there. And I found out there's been approximately 20 attempts in the last 3 years to land on the moon. About half of them all fail. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to sound like an idiot, but if you listen here, you already know I'm an idiot. I didn't know we had like 8 or 10 things that had already landed on the moon. I thought, wow, I was waiting for Apollo 18 or whatever the next thing was. It's part of NASA's plan to have another moon landing by humans by 2030. Blue Ghost is scheduled to be on the moon for 14 days, getting rock samples and other assorted things. Interesting. I have a feeling they're going to use the moon as some type of base to get to Mars, but, what do I know? All right. If you could, though, this is the end of our podcast. Don't cry. I know. I can feel it. I can feel your tears. Be happy we were able to share it. I know it's coming to an end, but be happy we were able to share this together. I need you. We need each other. We're fighting for democracy. We're fighting for a better world. I love you all. Hit that like and subscribe button. Show you love me, okay? And I will see you tomorrow. Peace out.